Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Dawson, and congratulations. If you made it back today, then you've made it through the toughest 2 months. So I'm proud of you, and let's see what we can do. First thing you'll find when you go into your doctor's office is they're going to weigh and measure your child, and they're going to be plotting them on the growth chart to see what percentiles they are. The problem here is everybody wants to be 90th percentile. Somewhere along the way we were raised where 90th percentile or higher was an A and 60th percentile or lower was failing. But that's not the way it is with the growth chart. Everyone can't be 90th percentile. Only 10% can. And if everybody were 90th percentile, well, then that would be 50th percentile. So I wish there weren't even numbers. I wish they just made colors like the green zone and the purple zone and the orange zone so that your doctor could just tell you that you're still growing up in the appropriate zone and everyone would be happy. So if you're gaining weight at a normal rate of speed, then everything is going fine. So I think that the most important thing that's going to happen at this point is now the baby seems like it's really your baby. No one tells you, but we don't all have love at first sight in the delivery room. Maybe like at first sight, but most folks around the time their child is 3 or 4 weeks old, they're feeling like, man, I'm working really hard for somebody's child. But by the time you get to 2 months and they start smiling at you and interacting with you, it seems like they're your baby. And that makes everything to me seem like it's a lot better. The other thing that helps is now there's a little bit of a routine. What worked yesterday works again tomorrow. And that's going to make your life a lot easier. There'll be kind of semi-reasonable times that they go down for naps so you can kind of plan your life and have a little bit of a schedule. Now, some books will say, let the baby just dictate the schedule. I'm here to tell you, I think the babies are a little bit too small to be in charge. And while their kind of habits may help you shape the routine in terms of what time, to nap, I usually would say that, about 15 minutes before their normal grumpy time is the right time to put them down for their nap. You still need to be in charge of that because I can assure you there's no, fourth babies and families that are running the whole family with their routine. So first of all, we'll talk about feedings. At this age, most babies will be eating somewhere in the sort of 2.5 to 4 hour range. And I think that makes your life a little bit more convenient. I think if they wake up at night, I would feed them. Some books will push you to try to get them to go through the night without eating at this age. But I think half of the babies are just still going to want to eat at night. And so under 4 months old, if they wake up, I feed them. And I think that'll make your life easier. In terms of other foods, we normally wait on fruits and vegetables and those kind of things until they're 4 months old. If grandma's really chomping at the bit to give them something, it's totally fine to give them a little bit of the iron-fortified rice cereal, the little baby rice cereals. Eventually, I'm going to want you to give that every day because it's really one of the best sources of iron. And I think the iron does make a difference in terms of how many Bs you make in the second grade. So eventually, I'm going to want you to give that anyway. No one's allergic to rice for practical purposes, and so you're not going to be breaking the rule, which the reason we wait on foods is it makes a few of the children that are prone to have food allergies a little less likely to have those food allergies. So hold off on the fruits and vegetables. A little bit of rice cereal would probably be fine. To talk for a minute about juice, apple juice with water is controversial. I consider it a social beverage. It's not necessary from a medical standpoint to drink a little apple juice diluted with water, but I would compare it to a Coke or a beer. And my assumption is that probably you have had a Coke or a beer in your past, and it didn't necessarily taint you for life. So while I don't want you drinking all beer, and I don't want the baby taking all apple juice with water, if it's a social event and grandma wants to give the baby a little apple juice with water, and you want to have a beer or a Coke, I think a little of any of those things would be perfectly fine. Developmentally, the most important thing is now that baby is going to smile at you, and that is worth so much. There's very few bad days that can't be helped out with a little bit of one of your baby's smiles. Other than that, they'll start holding their head up a little bit better when you're holding them on your shoulder. They should be able to hold their head up and look around some now. They will not really follow things with their eyes like a 4-month-old might, but what they should do is when you go across the room, they will kind of lurch and change their field of view so that they can still see what's going on. A similar thing happens with their hearing. A 4-month-old can actually turn when you call their name, At this point, they won't do that. But if they're on your shoulder and dad comes in the room and starts talking and they hear his voice, their head will pop up and they should start aimlessly searching around for dad. Won't find him till they're 4 months, but they should at least be looking around. In terms of sleep, most babies at this age are still going to be getting up once or twice. Like I alluded to previously, there's some of the baby books that will push you to say, let's go ahead and try to sleep train them at 2 months. In my opinion, half of the babies are not ready for this. And so to try it now, half of the poor parents are just beating their head against the wall. They're just really not ready to come down. From safety standpoint, there's lots of common sense things. I think the thing that stands out to me most at this age group is I would like for all strings or cords to be less than 12 inches long. Like sometimes I have little ribbons that are attached to their pacifier so that they won't fall on the floor. I think those things are fine, but if we can keep all those things less than 12 inches, then we have less risk of those things getting caught around their neck. In terms of siblings, at 2 months, if you have other children, the siblings will probably realize that there's a new addition to the family now. Some of the things you can do to help is make sure that we explain this addition as an addition to the family and not a replacement child. I think it also helps if we have rules that are family rules instead of special baby rules. So instead of saying, we don't hit the special baby with a baseball bat, I think it's reasonable to have a family rule that we don't hit anyone in the family, with a baseball bat. In terms of, spoiling your child, I don't really think you spoil a child by picking them up and holding them too much. I think that if you pick your child up when they're not crying, as well as when they are crying, then your baby doesn't learn that the only time they get picked up is when they're crying. It is certainly fine if you fed them and changed them and they're crying to leave them and let them cry a little bit. I can assure you that there's no fourth child in a family around that's picked up every time that they cry. So don't worry. Spoiling, I think, is not from giving our time or too much of our time to our children. I think spoiling comes around when we try to give them other things instead of our time. To speak a little bit about fevers, which may come up over the next couple of months, a little fever is not something to be feared. It's actually a good thing. Frequently, fevers will help let us know when our babies are sick, that when we wouldn't have known it otherwise. So, and despite what Grandma said, for practical purposes, fevers don't burn brain cells. And while illnesses can injure your child, it's almost never the fever that's actually causing the harm. So I'd say your average illness may give them 101 to 103 kind of fevers. Anything under 100.5 is a normal temperature. So I'd say normal temperature ranges from kind of 97 to about 100 or so. And 100.5 would be a low-grade fever. If we end up giving them Tylenol, the Tylenol is not to fight the fever. It's just to make them feel better while we're waiting for the illness to go away. I would compare it to when you take a Tylenol for a headache. You're not really treating the headache. You're just making yourself feel better while we're waiting for the headache to go away on its own. So the Tylenol is to make your baby feel better, not so much to fight the fever. But always, fever is just one sign of illness. Fever doesn't bother me near as much as a child that looks ill. If your child ever looks ill to you, whether they have a fever or not, that's a time you need to call your doctor. So something else that frequently happens for the first time today is that your baby is going to get their first set of shots. And if you want to know about immunizations, I have a few other videos where I talk in more detail about the actual immunizations. And so we won't go into that here. But the main thing to keep in mind today is the most common reaction I have when I give child immunizations is no reaction at all. The second most common reaction is that they sleep a little bit more that night, which almost no one complains about. And the third most common reaction might be a little low-grade fever or a little soreness where they got the vaccination. And for either one of those things, your doctor may recommend that you give a little Tylenol, or something like that. So going forward, the good news is I think the next 2 months, between 2 and 4 months, is the easiest 2 months of your child's life. I'm not sure I really think that exactly true, but let me just say it is so much better than the first 2 months that it seems like, that it is the easiest 2 months. So I would say enjoy the fact that you're going to have a little bit of a routine going forward. Try to sleep when they sleep. And then if you'd like sort of a written summary of this, if you were interested in going to the website, I've sort of written a summary and sort of a 2-month handout for you where we review some of these topics and talk about some other common concerns. And you're welcome to go to print those out if you would like. So glad you made it through the tough months. Look forward to the next 2 months, and I'll see you at 4 months.